Received about 80 requests for assistance up until November. Of those requests, 57 include parents seeking visitation. This means that most behind parents are seeking whereabouts of their children and wish to have visitation program. And 9 are outgoing cases that wanted to return of a child taken abroad from Japan. And 14 are incoming cases that wanted the return of a child brought to Japan from overseas. So 74% of requests concern visitation. 10 out of 80 cases concern couples who are both Japanese. Family court in Tokyo and Osaka will generally handle the cases and make decisions regarding the children's return. Unfortunately, it is quite difficult for sociologists to access ongoing cases. When I visited the USA in order to join a kind of study tour of the Hague Convention, a social worker told me that our judge will only listen to a judge, not a sociologist. It seems like that's the same everywhere you go. I'm a sociologist, not a lawyer or judge. Please do not ask me about practical matters of the Hague Convention. So what I can do for you is to present the trends in the number of international marriages, kokusai kekkon, which reflects transformation in Japanese society. And I would like to explain how and why Japanese family system has changed, as well as divorces and visitation matters in Japan. Finally, what does this mean for future of hate cases in Japan? The Japanese term for a marriage between a man and woman of different nationality is kokusai kekkon, literally international marriage. According to data from the Ministry of Health, Labor, Welfare, MHLW, when we focus on internationally married Japanese men and women from 1965 to 2013, it is notable that the number of foreign wives has increased dramatically since 1985. We can distinguish 5 or 6 time periods as shown this figure. During stage 1, Japan enjoyed rapid and extensive economic growth. However, this came to a halt with oil crisis in 1973. One of the reasons that international marriages in Japan did not become widespread until 1985 is the post-war family system. The rapid growth of marriage between Japanese men and foreign women became obvious after 1985, stage 3, when the bubble economy began. At the grasp of the bubble in 1991, the number of marriages this type remained at the same level, roughly 20,000 couples per year, until the Asian financial crisis of 1997. The time period from 1991 to 1997 can be called lost decade, or Heisei recession. During the recession, the most common nationality for overseas wife was Filipinos. But the trends had shifted from Filipino to Chinese women since 1997. The number of Chinese wives jumped from 6,000 in 1997 to 12,000 in 2008. After the Lehman shock of the 2008, the next phase of cross-nationality marriage of Japanese men began. The rapid decrease in number of rapid decrease in the number of Filipino wives since 2007 can also be seen in the trends shown this figure, and can attribute to more stringent limitations for entertainment visas after 2005. Entertainment visas were blamed for the human trafficking in the Trafficking in Person report published by the United States State Department. In 2006, 12,000 Filipino women rushed into marriage with Japanese men, but this number was reduced by half in the 3 years. After the Beijing Olympics 2008 Olympics, Chinese women might have realized their own nation's power, or Japanese men reduced their attraction. On the other hand, as you can see this figure, since 1992, after the collapse of the bubble economy, more and more Japanese women began to find their foreign husband outside of Japan. 3,050 marriages of this type took place in 1990, and the number doubled to 6,000 in 2000. The distribution of nationalities of foreign husbands who married the Japanese women abroad in 2013 shows that 27% were from the US, 5% were from UK, and 46% were from other countries. These include countries such as Canada, France, Australia, and New Zealand, which insisted that Japan become a signatory to the Hague Convention. It is quite natural that as marriages between Japanese women and foreign men outside of Japan increase in number, more divorces take place. The post-war family system, as defined by Emiko Ochiai, pertains to birth cohort generation from 1925 to 1950, and is characterized by the typical breadwinner model of a white-collar husband and a full-time homemaker or housewife with 2 children living in suburbs. This generation tends to have 4 siblings. For example, 2 brothers and 2 sisters. Among these birth cohorts, the disenfranchised younger members migrated from rural to metropolitan or urban cities. However, the eldest son usually remained his parents' house or hometown, became proper head in order to take the succession of the ie, household or house. His duty was to take care of not only his parents, but also a household Buddhist altar and a tune of ie. Thus, the ie tradition tends to remain in the eldest son's household, which was usually, though not always though, located in rural Japan. In 1985, Asahi Town in Yamagata Prefecture welcomed brides from the Philippines. They were called Noson Hanayome, village brides. Controversy arose when it was discovered the municipal government for these arranged marriage, leading to media accusations of human trafficking by the council. Ironically, for the sake of preserving the Japanese community and the ie, some Japanese families in remote areas had to welcome non-Japanese brides from Asian countries. The trends in Japanese men's cross-border marriage from 1985 reflected the destruction of ie system in Japan. And this is the total fertility rate. The first baby boomer generation tends to have 4 brothers and sisters, but as you can see, the second baby boomer generation tends to have 1 brother or 1 sister with 2 children, and now it's less than 2. So post-war family system had been stable between like 1955 to around 1975, when the rate of TFL keeps a little bit above 2. That is a stable post-war family system era. The trends in kokusai kekkon did not radically increase during the period of rapid economic growth from 1955 to 1972. Younger brothers and sisters, these first cohorts, could migrate and create not only the post-war family system, but also the model family for Japanese government policy. This is why the rate of transnational marriage was low during this period. Meanwhile, the rate of so-called love marriage or romantic marriage surpassed the rate of arranged marriage in the mid-1960s. For example, I was born in 1966. That was the year of the horse, so the birth rate was quite low at that time. My parents are arranged marriage. So, and divorce rate it increased from its lowest record of 0.73 per 1,000 population in 1963 to 2.0 in recent years. Big surge of the post-family system created tightened mother and child bond with the nuclear family. The phrase ikuji no irose, child rearing new losses, became popular. These mothers were likely to be cut off from the family networks and to have little cooperation from Japanese husbands. Coming from such context, a Japanese woman may find nothing particularly disturbing at the outset about her social isolation as a foreign mother, left to cope along with young child. She is also that much more likely to view her child as her own property. A Japanese woman may not realize that she is guilty of abduction if she takes her children back to Japan without the father's consent. Under civil code in Japan, parental rights are given to one member of divorced couple, whereas it is common in Western countries for parents to share custody. This is unlike many Asian countries where the husband and his family get custody of children after divorce. However, it was 1960s that it has become increasingly common for a child to stay with the mothers after divorce in Japan, as this figure shows. The transition from the notion of children of ie to that of children of their mothers happened during 1960s. As the post-war family system had become widespread during a period of rapid economic growth in Japan. In the mid-1960s, more mothers came to have custody than fathers. Joint custody is less than 10% of cases. The most common kind of divorce in Japan is by arranged marriage. Agreement. This figure shows that nearly 90% of Japanese divorce cases are mutual consent, kekkon, in 2013. The MHLW specified report of vital statistics in fiscal year 2009 indicates that the rate of divorces by mutual agreement and court divorces in Japan by nationality of husband and wife stands at 87.2% for Japanese couples, 95.6% for Japanese husbands and foreign wives, 91.9% for foreign husbands and Japanese wives. On the other hand, among Japanese living overseas, the rate of divorce by mutual agreement stands at 73.2%. So approximately 1/4 of overseas divorces are judicial decree. Japanese people tend to be unfamiliar with court divorces, unlike US and other European countries, because Japanese family courts usually become involved in a small minority of cases when other matters arise after divorce. One example is arbitrated divorce, 調停離婚, in which husband and wife can have a form of mediation in a family court. Another example is a judgment divorce, which has to follow decision of family court, 審判離婚. This happens when divorce cannot be established by an arbitration. A final example is a degree divorce by judgment of district court, 裁判離婚 or 判決離婚. Degree divorces account for only 1% of all divorces. Besides the Yamagata village brides incident, 1985 was also a memorable year for Japanese women of kokusai kekkon. In that year, Japan became a signatory nation of a convention of elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, 女性差別撤廃条約. Until then, a Japanese woman who had a foreign husband could not pass Japanese nationality on to her child. Children had to follow the nationality of their father. These regulations date back to Meiji era, when the first rules for kokusai kekkon were established as Edict 103. 太政官布告第103号と言います。Edict 103 adopted the principles of French Code Napoleon of 1804. It prioritized paternal jurisdictions where a wife, upon marriage, is transferred to nationality of her husband, and the children inherit their father's nationality. Although the post-war Japanese constitution states gender equality, some laws concerning cross-nationality marriage had remained unchanged from the Meiji era to the end of Showa era. For example, divorce had to follow husband's country rules. In 1986, it became possible for children born with same cross-nationality marriage to choose their nationality by the age of 22. Most young and middle-aged Japanese women at the time were brought up in nuclear families, in which the bond between the children and the mother is particularly close. The Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination also created the Equal Employment Opportunity Law for men and women in 1986, in Japanese 男女雇用機会均等法. The child care leave law was established in 1992. If you want to know about the relationship called Napoleon and Edict 103, you can read my English paper, Creating Special Hierarchies, the Koseki, Early International Marriage and the Intermarriage. Well, thanks to Carl Jacob Kongnes and David Chapman translated my Japanese into English. But this is a very expensive book, so please share or please find it in libraries. Well, however, Japanese young women are not willing to keep both their career and childcare. Most of my students at Kyoto Women's University want to become full-time housewives, and only 40% of students want to keep their regular job after giving birth in their near future. The reason for this is that their main female role models are their mothers. who were almost certainly raised under the post-war family system. Like me, their parents' age is just like my age, so they were brought up in the post-war family system, and they also create post-war family system with their daughters. So, not unnaturally, daughters raised up the post-war family system wish to emulate it themselves. However, the second baby boomer, who were born around the oil shock 1973 or 72, had to graduate. The second generation baby boomers faced difficulties finding not only regular jobs but also marriage partners. The generation who were born around the time of the oil crisis began searching for employment during the lost decade, post-bubble years. In the 1990s, Japan was mired in a serious recession, which caused unemployment to rise to a precedent level. This made it difficult to find regular jobs or create post-war family system. Thanks to their mothers, when the second generation baby boomers got home from work, hot meals, hot bath, been prepared, their laundry had been done, the room had been cleaned. Why should they leave this paradise? Sociologist Masahiro Yamada termed them parasite single in 1999. In 2010, this generation reached between 30 to 34 years of age, but 47.3% of men and 34.5% of women still remain single. Despite this second generation baby boomers having reached around 40 now, there is no third generation baby boomers. However, their parents who previously supported them have already reached their retirement age and can no longer afford to do so. Among those who could have started a family, it would have been better for a wife to keep her career after she gave birth, and for a husband to support his wife and to take care of their baby. The term ikumen, good male caregiver, has become popular nowadays. It was 1999 campaign by MHLW that urged the father to take care of his child under the slogan, "You will never be called dad if you do not take care of your child." Sam, this guy, who was the husband of celebrity pop star Nami Amuro, that woman, was used as a father in the campaign poster that they divorced in 2000. As Fujiwara Chisa points out, the trends in the divorce rates are quite similar to those the male employment rate in Japan. This figure shows crude divorce rate has increased sharply from 1.28 in 1990 to 2.3 in 2002. Kato Akihiko, family sociologist, found the economic growth eases the impact of social stratification factors which result in break-up marriages. But he also pointed out that nuclear families are more likely to divorce than couples who live with their husband's parents. Since the 1990s, the data shows the Japanese woman choosing husbands in foreign countries. I showed before. This is related to increased crude divorce rate and employment rate during the last decade. In the consequence of growing number of divorce cases, the number of petitions for visitation has quadrupled over the past 10 years. Oops. Today, over 24,000 cases a year are fought in court. Ikumen fathers have begun to insist on seeking their children in their post-divorce lives. Previously, family court used to settle disputes through intercession, but these often result either in ad hoc resolution or court convincing the parents requesting visitation to withdraw the demand. In recent years, the court have shifted their view dramatically. They now regard post-divorce visitation as beneficial to child. According to Tanase Takao, who is an expert family law, in a recent court case in which a couple bitterly fought over visitation both before and after their divorce, the Tokyo Family Court The Tokyo Family Code, July 1st, 2006, ruled that it's necessary for young children to see the non-custodial parents and be loved by their parents. This greatly facilitates their healthy development and formation of their characters. The Court is providing that no special circumstances in which visitation violates the welfare of children. It should be approved. The adjudication of Tokyo Family Code is basic legal theory of visitation in Japan today. This shift in attitude by family court led to modification divorce notification paper concerning minors. Kekkon kodoke. This was implemented under the 2012 civil law revisions. If the couple has a child under the age of 20, they are required to check boxes. Have they agreed on childcare expenses, and have they agreed on visitation? Article 766 of the Civil Code newly says, if parents divorce by agreement, the matter of who will have custody over a child, visitation, and other means of contact between the child and his or her mother or father, payment of expenses for child rearing, and any other necessary matters regarding child custody shall be determined by the agreement. In such situations, the children's interest must be given the highest priority. This is the first time the Japanese Civil Code has used the term the child interest. However, this clause does not state that visitation is a right of a child. If a couple did not check two boxes without visitation or child expenses, the divorce will still go through. According to Ministry of Justice, almost 60% of divorcing couples checked the boxes in 2013. But the exact terms decided on cannot be known. These legal changes, however, do not possess any legal forces to be pursued. Shuhei Ninomiya, who is also an expert of family law, points out that the decision of Niigata Family Court, April 25th, 2013, was excessive. In this case, the wife who had been suffering from PTSD, the domestic violence from her husband, the family court ordered the visitation of the husband and their children. The Tokyo High Court sent this case back to the lower court to fulfill more sufficient research in the child's best interest from high-conflict parents. Even though the revised civil law still adheres to single custody, the website entitled Courts in Japan has updated information regarding visitation since 2009. and it is also available to access via videos. One title is For Protection of Children from Disputes over Divorce, and the other one is titled For Children's Visitation. According to Ogawa Tomiyuki's 2009 paper titled The Child Custody Issues at the Time of Divorce from the Point of View of Japanese Family Law, including International Marriage Breakdown, he insisted that Japan could not become a party of the Hague Convention on the civil aspects of international child abduction due to the inconsistencies between the current Japanese legal system, especially sole parental authority, and the convention. The Japanese Family Code used to refuse applications from overseas parents to allow them to take their children back to the original countries. However, this view has also been changing, and the Family Code is said to be a lot more willing to consider applications from overseas parents before signing the convention. Due to this drastic change in the Family Code, there is a hope that lots of children from mixed parentage will be able to see both mom and dad, since Japan signed the Hague Convention on International Child Abduction. According to Ministry of Foreign Affairs, once of the cases include an 8-year-old child who was taken to Switzerland by the American father, and the Japanese mother successfully applied in August for help from the ministry, another from help the foreign ministry. Another outgoing case was that of the mother who took her 3-year-old child to the United States, prompting the father to seek assistance from the ministry in June. After negotiation, the mother-child voluntarily returned to Japan. As an example of an incoming case, a Japanese mother took her children to Japan without consent of German father. Through this intervention, the Japanese mother voluntarily returned her child to Germany with her. Conclusion. My work as a sociologist has allowed me to focus this presentation on the grasp of the post-war family system and the resulting impact on society. The grasps can be seen not only in Japanese couples and their divorces, but also in cross-nationality divorce. The post-war family system consists of nuclear families that radiate illusions of a happy family and myth of safety and security, as evidenced in the ambition of my female students mentioned earlier. The Fukushima nuclear plant was believed to be safe and would ensure a bright future for us, but now it radiates in visible ways. In the context of such shattered illusions, the person who takes a risk overseas must be reconsidered her or his notion of a bright future. In 2000, the Child Abuse Prevention Law went into effect in Japan. In 2001, the Act for Prevention of Spousal Violence and Protection of Victims was promulgated for the first time. The NHLW had also started publishing a white paper on single mothers and children since 2004. Its official name is Report on Implementation of Measures of Independent Support for Mothers or Fatherless Families. Not only single mothers, but also Japanese single women are likely to suffer from poverty. Just as modern technology could not prevent earthquake or explosion of nuclear plant, we should realize that nuclear family in modern society could be another nuclear explosion. and destroy the fundamental relationships between couples, parents, children, and communities, no matter how the technology has progressed. A transnational nuclear family is more fragile in somehow, especially when they have cross-cultural kids or children. It is quite natural that a foreign mother wants her children to learn her mother tongue and her culture. However, the father feels isolated when the mother and child speak in a language that he might not understand well. When children are infants, they spend more time with their mothers. Children cannot imagine their mothers might become kidnappers and they might be victims. In spite of the growing number of divorce cases, there are quite few studies on how children, especially from mixed parentage, have adjusted to a divorce. It's urgent for researchers of all nations to collaborate in researching mixed children. Thank you.